He took the security job because he thought he was done saving lives. The medical license was suspended, the career over. The hands that once held hearts now held nothing but a flashlight and radio. But on this quiet Tuesday night, when a young mother's heart stopped beating in the hospital corridor, he faced a choice: stay in the shadows he'd chosen, or risk everything to be the doctor he once was. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we continue this powerful story of redemption and hidden purpose, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who never stop caring, even when the world stopped believing in them. The night shift at St. Mary's Medical Center in downtown Chicago was always quiet after midnight. The emergency calls slowed down, the corridors emptied, and the only sounds were the soft beeping of machines and the distant hum of fluorescent lights. That's when Dr. Michael Harrison, though nobody called him that anymore, made his rounds. Security badge 2847. Gray uniform, black boots worn from months of walking these same halls. Radio clipped to his belt, flashlight in hand, making the circuit he'd memorized by heart. North wing, south wing, check the parking garage. Back to the main lobby. 4 hours until sunrise. 4 hours of invisible service in a place where he once commanded respect. The staff barely acknowledged him. A nod from the night nurse. Maybe a quick evening from the janitor. They didn't know his story, and he preferred it that way. To them, he was just another security guard, someone hired to watch doors and check badges. They didn't see the way his eyes lingered on the medical charts left at nurse stations, or how his hands unconsciously moved when he heard the distant sounds of emergency procedures. Michael had been a cardiologist once. Not just any cardiologist, one of Chicago's finest. 15 years at this very hospital, hundreds of lives saved, a reputation that commanded respect from colleagues across Illinois. His hands had performed miracles in operating rooms. His decisions had meant the difference between life and death for countless patients. But that was before the mistake. One surgery, one moment of human error, one family destroyed. The malpractice lawsuit lasted 2 years. The Illinois State Medical Board's investigation was thorough and merciless. Medical license suspended indefinitely. Career over. Future gone. When the St. Mary's security position opened up, the irony wasn't lost on him. The same halls where he once saved lives now needed him to simply watch over them. The supervisor, Tom Rodriguez, knew who he was, but never mentioned it. Just handed him a badge, a uniform, and a schedule. Building rounds every 2 hours, Tom had said. Radio if you see anything unusual. Keep the place safe. Safe. The word had once meant something different to Michael. It meant steady hands during surgery, quick decisions in the cardiac unit, the knowledge that came from Northwestern Medical School. Now it meant checking locked doors and walking empty corridors. But on this Tuesday night in November, with Lake Michigan's cold wind rattling the windows, everything changed. At 2:17 a.m., Michael was completing his south wing circuit when he heard it. A sound that made his blood freeze. Not an alarm or a code announcement, something worse. The sound of someone struggling to breathe, followed by a heavy impact against the floor. He ran toward the sound, his radio already in hand. The main corridor connecting the emergency department to the medical wings. A woman, maybe 35, lay unconscious near the elevator bank. Her face was pale, lips slightly blue. Her purse scattered beside her, contents spilled across the linoleum. Michael dropped to his knees beside her, his flashlight beam revealing the truth his trained eye recognized immediately. Cardiac arrest. Her pulse was weak and irregular, breathing shallow. Every second mattered. He looked around desperately. The corridor was empty. The emergency department was handling a multi-vehicle accident on R94. He could hear the chaos echoing from that direction. His radio crackled with urgent communications about the accident victims. For a moment, Michael hesitated. He wasn't supposed to do more than call for help and wait. His medical license was suspended. If something went wrong, if he made another mistake, the lawsuit, the media attention, the final destruction of whatever reputation he had left. But then he looked at her face again. Young, someone's daughter, someone's mother. A small photo had fallen from her open purse. A little girl, maybe 4 years old, smiling at the camera. The same eyes as the woman lying unconscious before him. His hands moved without conscious thought. Years of training at Northwestern don't disappear because of paperwork. He checked her airway, tilted her head back, began chest compressions. The muscle memory was still there. 30 compressions at the correct depth and rate, 2 rescue breaths. Check for pulse. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, stay with me." After what felt like hours but was probably 90 seconds, she gasped, a weak intake of breath, but breathing nonetheless. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened. "Ma'am, you're okay," Michael said softly, his voice carrying the calm authority he'd once used in the cardiac unit. "You're at St. Mary's Medical Center. Help is coming." She tried to sit up, but he gently held her shoulders down. "Just lie still. You've had a cardiac episode. We need to get you to the emergency department." That's when the medical team arrived. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the night shift cardiologist, led the team with a stretcher and portable monitors. She took one look at the scene. The woman stable and conscious, Michael kneeling beside her with obvious expertise, and paused. "What happened here?" she asked, sensing something unusual. "Found her unconscious at 2:17, Michael reported with medical precision. "Cardiac arrest, no pulse, cyanotic. Performed CPR for approximately 90 seconds before she regained consciousness. Pulse is now present but irregular, approximately 78 beats per minute." Dr. Walsh stared at him. The terminology, the precision, the way he'd positioned the patient. None of it was what you'd expect from a security guard. "That's very thorough reporting." As the medical team took over, the woman grabbed Michael's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "My daughter, Emma, she needs me." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "You're going to be there for her for a very long time, Mrs. Johnson, Sarah Johnson. You're going to be fine, Mrs. Johnson." As they wheeled her toward the emergency department, Dr. Walsh lingered behind. "That was textbook CPR," she said quietly. "Perfect compression depth, perfect rate, perfect hand placement. Where did you learn that?" Michael stood up slowly. "Basic certification. They train all security staff." Dr. Walsh shook her head. "No, that wasn't basic certification. That was advanced cardiac life support. That was how a doctor would do it." The words hung in the air between them. Michael met her gaze for a long moment, then simply said, "Anyone can learn to help." But Dr. Walsh wasn't satisfied. After her shift ended, she did something she'd never done before. She looked up the security guard's background. What she found changed everything. Tom Rodriguez pulled Michael aside during shift change. "Heard what happened with the cardiac arrest victim?" Michael braced himself for a reprimand about overstepping his duties. Instead, Tom smiled. "Hospital administration wants to meet with you next week. Something about a position in emergency medical services. Part-time, consulting basis. Seems they've been looking for someone with specialized knowledge." Michael stared at him. "Tom, you know my situation. There are ways to use medical knowledge without practicing medicine," Tom said carefully. "Training, protocol development, emergency response coordination." 3 weeks later, Michael Harrison still made rounds at St. Mary's Medical Center, but now he carried a different badge, had a different purpose. Emergency Medical Training Coordinator. His suspended license didn't matter for training others, for developing protocols, for being exactly where he needed to be when someone's life hung in the balance. Sarah Johnson made a full recovery. Her cardiac episode was caused by an undiagnosed arrhythmia, easily treated once identified. 2 weeks later, she returned to St. Mary's, not as a patient, but as a visitor. She found Michael in his new office working on a training manual. "I wanted to thank you properly," she said, her 4-year-old daughter Emma hiding behind her legs. "The doctors told me what you did. They said you saved my life." Michael knelt down to Emma's eye level. "Your mommy was very brave," he told the little girl. "And now she's going to be around to see you grow up." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "They told me you're not just a security guard. They said you're a doctor." "I was," Michael said simply. "Now I'm something different, but I'm exactly where I need to be." That conversation led to something unexpected. What she discovered about Michael Harrison became a story that changed not just his life, but the lives of countless others. Her article, titled The Doctor in the Shadows, How One Man's Fall Became Everyone's Rise, told Michael's story and introduced the program he'd developed. St. Mary's non-medical staff intervened in 18 life-threatening emergencies, cardiac arrests, choking incidents, allergic reactions, diabetic crises. Each time, the person who stepped up wasn't a doctor or nurse. It was someone Michael had trained. The program's success attracted attention from hospitals across Illinois, then across the Midwest. Michael found himself traveling to Cleveland, Detroit, St. Louis, training thousands of people who would never be doctors, but who could still save lives. 2 years after that night in the corridor, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, now promoted to Chief of Cardiology, stood before the American Heart Association's annual conference in Dallas. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to an audience of cardiologists from across the country, "I want to tell you about a man who lost his license to practice medicine and ended up saving more lives than any of us ever will." She told Michael's story. She told them about the Guardian Angel Protocol. She told them about the lives saved by people who learned that you don't need a medical degree to make the difference between life and death. "The man I'm talking about," Dr. Walsh concluded, "proved that being a doctor isn't about what's written on your license. It's about what's written in your heart." Michael was in the audience that day. When Dr. Walsh finished her presentation, the room erupted in applause. Not polite conference applause, but the kind of ovation reserved for heroes. 3 months later, the Illinois State Medical Board did something unprecedented. They reinstated Dr. Michael Harrison's medical license. His rehabilitation had been so complete, his contribution to patient safety so profound, that they couldn't justify keeping him from practicing medicine any longer. But Michael Harrison didn't return to the operating room. He stayed exactly where he was, training people who would never be doctors, but who might someday be someone's guardian angel. Today, the Guardian Angel Protocol has been implemented in over 200 hospitals across the United States. Conservative estimates suggest that Michael's program has been responsible for saving over 1,500 lives. Not lives he saved directly, but lives saved by people he taught. Michael still works at St. Mary's, but not as a security guard anymore. His title reads Director of Non-Clinical Emergency Response Training. His students include hospital employees, police officers, teachers, store clerks, anyone who might find themselves in a position to help when help is needed most. The photo Sarah Johnson gave him sits on his desk. Emma, now 7 years old, wearing a soccer uniform and smiling at the camera. The note attached reads, "Thank you for giving me my mom. Love, Emma." Next to it sits another photo, his medical school graduation from Northwestern, the day he thought his life as a healer began. He knows better now. His life as a healer didn't begin that day. It began on a quiet Tuesday night when he chose to kneel down beside a stranger and refused to let her die. Michael learned that night that credentials don't make you a doctor. Caring does. That sometimes the most important surgery you'll ever perform happens in a corridor at 2:17 a.m., with nothing but your hands and the refusal to give up on someone else's tomorrow. But more than that, he learned that falling isn't failing. That losing everything you thought you were can help you discover who you really are. That sometimes the greatest gift you can give the world isn't your success, but your willingness to transform your failure into someone else's hope. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone who lost their title but never lost their calling? Someone who found their way back to their purpose through service to others? Share their story in the comments, because here at The Human Stories, we believe that redemption isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about discovering what you never stopped being. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, subscribe and share it with someone who believes in second chances. We'll see you in the next story, and until then, remember, sometimes the most qualified person in the room is the one nobody recognizes.